Hello. Thank you for joining us for our 10th episode of the Cerulean Skies RPG podcast. And I have this typical format that I always read off for each episode, but today, because it's our 10th episode, I'm saying, fuck it, man. Let's wing it. This is our weekly RPG podcast. We talk about all sorts of cool stuff. We always have new guests, at least in this early form, this alpha build of this. And this podcast is aimed to be a little bit more loose, a little bit more free flying, more discussion based. And we do this because we want to have a little bit of engagement with the stream and have everyone come and hang out because we love discussing these things and we're passionate about them. So I'm your host, Joey, and today I'm joined by Paul.
Hey, everyone.
And Dylan.
Hello, everyone.
And you guys are new to the show. So what we always try to do with people who jump on the show for the first time is we try to do the basic bitch approach. We talk about some of our favorite RPGs, how we got into the genre, maybe a little bit of a spice to go with that, right? And additionally, we always have a subtopic on these podcasts. So tonight's subtopic is going to be the revivals and new entries in long-running RPG series. And sometimes that means mixed results, critical divisiveness, that sort of thing. But before we get started, like I said, you guys are new. So if you want to introduce yourselves, tell us who your daddy is, what he does, and what kind of trauma led you into discovering RPGs. Paul, we'll start with you. How might we know you, bro?
You probably don't, but if you do, I'm a reviewer at rpgamer.com. I've been doing that for about 2 years. And before that, I've just been like a random lurker on like GameFAQs and Reddit, just like trolling people for their opinions. Other than that, you also will find me on Twitter at my handles at PaulWall217, because I love the rapper Paul Wall. And that's where you'll find me.
Hell yeah! And Dylan, how about you, man?
Yeah, I genuinely feel like I'm just some random guy on the internet, but I do work with various podcasts that I'll probably plug at the end of this episode. Otherwise, I'm a training actor. I studied acting in college, and I'm continuing to do private lessons, just working on perfecting my craft before I start focusing on it full time. And I also have opinions about video games that I post on the internet.
Yeah, we're all randos with opinions.
Yeah, I mean, like, at the end of the day, that's all anyone is, really. But, like, at the same time, I was kind of... when you reached out to me for the Super RPG Friends stream last week, Joey, I was like, oh, shit, people actually want to talk to me.
No, dude, I remember you... So, I don't normally do this with a podcast, but I think it could be kind of fun from here on out. So, let's do that. Trying to figure out the pipeline of how we know each other. So, Dylan, I remember I think you followed me randomly, or I followed you randomly, and you jumped on one of our, we were watching a Nintendo Direct or Sony, it was a Sony State of Play.
It was the Sony State of Play, because I remember the FF16 trailer playing there.
Yes, and then you jumped down, and I'm like, I don't know this guy, I fucking like talking to him, he's a good dude, why don't I see him more? And so, always in the back of my mind. And Paul, I know how I know you, actually. I listened to a podcast you did, and I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was about Final Fantasy.
Oh, I don't... The only other times I would have recorded something would have been for RP Gamer. That would have been like an end-of-the-year podcast, or they would have done an episode about... I would have talked about Final Fantasy VII, maybe remake.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been like for like the 2020 like end of year. What I remember from you is I remember coming across you on Twitter. I think I found the fan site, or not the fan site, the digital
MLS.
Yes, I found digital MLS. I think on Facebook of all places, and then like I found it on Twitter, and then I saw that you were like the content manager, and I think I was just being a fanboy and followed you, and then I I just started interacting with you because your takes were like pretty good. Sometimes there was something I was like, come on, man. So it was just like fun establishing that rapport with someone online, because really I would just like post something and then just like walk away from it and never like engage with people further. But like coming to Twitter, oddly enough, during COVID, I got really into Twitter when COVID first started. And so like I like really invested being back on Twitter because I was getting a lot of news from there, and it was like helping to like assuage a lot of my anxiety. But then I found actual like people to engage with and talk about like interests, like video games, which is something that I've always wanted my entire life. Really, I've always wanted to have like actual engagement and discussion about like why we're playing games and what it is about games that we're playing. To find that online and to like to find someone like you, like I can like engage with and like be open about what it is that I like about these games without, without fear or reservation has been awesome. So, and to be invited to come and do this is doubly awesome. So, thank you.
Dude, thank you. That's so sweet. I mean, like, not to build a wall of toxic positivity, not implying that any of that was toxic positivity, but you fucking matter. But no, I mean, I think like a lot of people complain about Twitter, and yeah, Twitter is like a dystopian, like smoked out landscape. But like that being said, if you curate your timeline right and you interact with the right people, I've had a lot of really good experiences. I mean, like half the guests on here, a lot of people in Cerulean Skies I've met through Twitter just from shit posting. And like it's funny that you're like, oh, you had some good ideas, and then someone, I'm like, come on, man. And I feel like that's my brand now.
Yeah, that's fair.
But like I kind of like that, man, because it drives in it just drives discussion, right? I almost said the E word, engagement, but because I think that's kind of a bullshit streamer term, but like at the same time, like it does get people talking, and I think that's the coolest thing. And being able to carry, we're children of the smoked out 90s as well, right? So like we grew up with like that weird cuspian era where things were still kind of like stigmatized. Gaming was sort of stigmatized. The idea of like playing sort of something niche was a little bit more insular because you didn't have the internet as widespread and ubiquitous, and outlets to get your fucking weird Final Fantasy fix out, right? So I feel like we have a lot of the people around our age range, which is 16 to 19, have that kind of almost like pent up like passion, right? And I feel like that's why our generation podcasts and are why we're annoying about this kind of thing.
I mean, it's why my 4.5-year-old, she knows who Cloud is. Like she's played the remake with me. She plays it by herself. We're playing.
I love that.
What are we playing right now? We're Star Ocean. We're playing Star Ocean,
Nice.
and I just picked up. I think Elena, the android character,
Mhm.
and she comes downstairs and she opens. I give it to her and she plays it and she goes, "Did you get a new party member?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I did." And it's like, so I feel like you see so much of that, like in culture, you see so much of this projection from parents onto their stuff, which I think like we've always seen a little bit, but to see how much of culture has just been like cannibalized and like regurgitated back, to really buying it, and giving it to them and like introducing them to all these things that otherwise weren't there. So yeah, oh boy, I could talk all day about that.
And I feel like it's wonderful that you matched your daughter's age with the score of Star Ocean 6 out of 10. So like a nice 4 out of 10. No, I'm kidding. I like Star Ocean 6. I'm not gonna hate on it. But
your tweet was funny. Your tweet was so funny. Star Ocean 6.5 out of 10. I laughed so hard that I forgot to actually like the tweet. Then I had to come back the next day and was like, "This is so damn good." Especially, it would have worked really well for Star Ocean 5.
Oh yeah. Well, Star Ocean 5 is 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
A heavy 5 out of
10. Yeah.
I
tried playing it recently, and you guys, it's just the backtracking. Oh, it was just killing me. Oh my gosh! And there's backtracking in 6. But you could fast travel, or you could just like zip around, and like honestly, it takes like 30 seconds to get through a map and a couple battles. So yeah, it was just 5's terrible.
We will definitely get to Star Ocean 5 on this discussion because I feel like that's a big touchstone for our topic. So I'm excited to hear you dump on it. But speaking of dumping, let's dump some of our favorite RPGs now and try to get a feel for. I mean, I think we all kind of have an idea of what we like, but like just for the sake of the show and discussion, whatever, let's drop some. So Dylan, we'll start with you, man. What are your faves?
Okay. So the game that I can't get out of my head is Final Fantasy 12, and I'll talk more about that later. But ironically enough, I know that game has a bit of a mixed reputation, and when it originally came out, and I was a 12-year-old picking it up for the first time. I hated it, but I went back to it for some reason right before I went into college. I think I had downloaded Vagrant Story from the PlayStation Store because it was available. Um, and something about that game clicked with me super hard. And so when I went back to Final Fantasy 12, I was like, "Oh, this isn't Final Fantasy 12. This is Vagrant Story 2." And
Yeah.
yeah, that switch in perspective, I think, really helped me gel with the game a lot more than when I initially was trying to get into it after, like, I want to say that was like my third or fourth Final Fantasy game. So I got into the series, had like an established idea of what the series brand identity was, and then had that like pulled out from under me all in the span of, I want to say, like 3 years maybe.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah,
Uh
got into Final Fantasy like more or less at the tail end of its golden era, as some people would put it.
Hell yeah. And what else on the list besides actually real quick I want to ask are you a Matsuno fan at all? Like the tactics
Yeah,
game
I would
over.
say I Tactics Ogre intimidates the hell out of me. I'm gonna be real. It looks cool. I've talked to people who love that game, and it sounds really fucking cool. But I tactics games are like, I have to be in the mood to play them. That also extends to Final Fantasy Tactics, but at least that game you can kind of break over your knee, so um, it's a bit more easy to get into in my mind. But I love Vagrant Story and I love Final Fantasy 12 and everything I know about every other Matsuno game I really enjoy. So, you know, the jury's still out on that one.
Hell yeah. Anything else that you want to mention? Any like
Um, yeah, I gotta think. Just because this was a talking point later down the docket, but I guess while we're here, I feel like my favorite games have radically changed over the last decade. So I don't want to throw anything out without, having that absolute certainty that I still like it. Um, but I don't know. That being said, I played Dragon Quest III for the first time like
ooh.
a few years ago and loved that game way more than I expected. And then I'm currently going through Etrian Odyssey Untold 2 right now, and that game is really hidden different for me. So
Hell yeah. Yeah, I do want to get it a little bit into Etrian Odyssey when we start talking about these new entries, but I thought you were going
cool.
to make a Radical Dreamers pun, and so I'll pass that to Paul because I know this man has some kind of Chrono game on his favorites list.
So it's Chrono Trigger was one of the very first RPGs that I played. Um, I was with my mom and she was like trying to get me to like hurry up out of like the weird video game movie rental section that they had at my grocery store back in, this is like in the 90s, so anything goes.
Yeah.
They had, like banks and movie rentals. So she picked up the box and she was like, "Does this look good?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, it looks good. Are you kidding me?" And it was between that and Final Fantasy then 2, playing that game and being like, these games are amazing, and like that is like what informed. I'd always been a gamer since I was like a small child, on like my Nintendo. But really, you guys, it was like this was like, oh my gosh, you guys, eye opening, like just things that they would just take so much of your time. You would come home from school, play it until dinner time, then play it again until bedtime, like. And there's just so, and you mentioned earlier, Joey, in your outline, you talk a little bit about the golden era of games, and it's like JRPGs specifically, like Square Enix, and it's like the Super Nintendo era, the PlayStation 1 era is just like, it is so marvelous, and like certainly like I would expect you to agree with me, and part of me just has to wonder, is it because that's what I was like weaned on, because
Right,
when you
right.
make a game that still has like those, like Octopath Traveler, it's like that is, it's like I'm having like a sensory overload when you're playing it. And yeah, the HD 3D, whatever the hell it's called, get some diminishing returns. But when you hit those triggers, those memory boxes are being hit. It's like, come on, man. So when you ask me my favorite games, it's like I got Saga Frontier, Lunar 1, 2, Valkyrie Profile 1, Star Ocean 2, like Wild Arms 1 and 3, because 2's basic as hell. Yeah, those are the games I think about. Those are the games I've got all up here.
Oh, yo.
Did you see this, Paul?
I've seen it and I've like lusted over it, dude. And I've got two copies of I've got 2 copies of Lunar 2, and I'm still like, fuck, you got that.
Dude, you know what? Like, they're not okay. I say this relative to the resale market, but they're not that expensive. Like, you can get one for like 30 to $40, which
What
isn't
happens though is
that
my
bad.
kids will see it and they will open it. And like I can't like none of this stuff really matters. Like they're not gonna come and like take it and open it. But my son has like this new thing where like my Switch cases, he's like living to open them up, take the inserts out. And I'm like, don't do it, man. Don't do it. And he's like, Daddy's game. And I'm like, all right, it is. That it is. So yeah, it's like that because we talk so much about nostalgia. We saw so many games that are made to mimic that style, but none of them ever hit with me. Do you remember they made? And this was like 10 years ago. It was it Pierre Solar.
Yeah. The thing
Yeah.
that they did like a release on the Genesis with too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was like I have that on my PlayStation, and like RFL, and like those games that are supposed to be designed in that style. Um, I just like I can't because they don't evoke those memories, that nostalgia, because you don't have that schema in your brain of
Right.
where to find those like those items. It's not activating those, not triggering that form. It feels hollow. So like that's why like oh god, like I Am Setsuna, all those games that were made by that studio. I can't remember the name.
Mhm.
It
It's
was like
Tokyo
they
RPG
feel
Factory.
so.
Yeah.
Yep. They you look at them and you're like, yes, should be sitting there and having this the response to it, but it feels hollow. And we'll talk about that later in like some of the revivals of some of the games that we're seeing that we come out. Take some interesting spins on these franchises, but at the end of the day, like lack the heart. And I'm still torn on. Is it because the heart that I have for these games is carried from when I'm 10 years old?
Yeah, dude. Okay, I really have to address something here because I think that okay, I'm gonna divulge a secret um, agenda that I've had since I started podcasting in general, and it's that I really want to eventually transition to talking about psychology and video games in a very empirical way. I come from a research background. A lot of what I studied in academically was memory and perception, and what you just hit on is something that I have really been trying to like focus on in like a coherent way, is the way that like your brain is hardwired to, you know, pick up on certain things that trigger memories. But here solar is a really good example. It's like a facsimile of a memory, right? Like
Yeah.
you have something that's like supposed, that's like, you know, immediately triggering your sense of memory of like, hey, this looks like something I have nostalgia with. And, you know, you associate nostalgia with kind of bittersweet feelings, sometimes anhedonic or depressive feelings too, because a lot of nostalgia leans into that. So it's like, it's almost like a burnout. It's like somewhere between like a burnout effect and like a genuine like engagement of your brain. Because your brain's like almost like saying, hey, there's something here that's not the way it should be. What's wrong with it? And then that's when neurotic analytics kick in, right? And fuck, that's such a good state. I just wanted to underscore that really quick because I just want to frame things in this context more, and I don't get an opportunity enough to do it. So thank you for that.
That's and
Glad
that's
we
like
could
one of my
open that
interests.
door.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, that's
sorry,
one of
go
my
ahead.
interests in writing about video games generally. It's like right now I'm doing the last 2 years I've been focusing on like writing video game reviews. But it's like my interest in games are like so is so much deeper than like reviewing a game. No one cares what my review of a video game is. I'm really just doing it to like flex my writing and to like credibility. But what I want to talk about is like why people play these games, what drives them, what motivates them to do it. Why am I still playing video games, you guys, 30 years later? Why am I still playing some video games this time later? Why do I still have the same? Hope I don't fall out of my chair.
If
Hold
you
on.
do, it'll sell it.
Why do I still have the same copy, Final Fantasy
Let's
VII?
go.
Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
since 1997. You guys, this thing is cracked to shit. Okay, this is, I have driven. I've been in a van that drove from Michigan to Florida in 1999, and I brought this with me. This is like a security blanket. When I traveled to in 2008 when I went on a study abroad in Cyprus on the other side of the fucking planet. You guys, do you know what I'm playing when I can't sleep and it's 1 in the morning and I'm missing home and it's like I'm playing Final Fantasy VII on my Vita or my PSP because it's not even out yet.
Yeah.
Um, so and I have a psychology background as well, and so to me, it's like I'm more interested in why my brain is bringing me to repeat these experiences or seek out these experiences. So yes, I would love to talk to you with this about you. I'd love to work on this with you,
Hell
because
yeah.
it's video games is only supposed to, it's like the response of like pressing these buttons and watching. It's about so much more than that. The chemicals in my brain. It's like why someone could laugh at this shelf, and I'm like, you guys, some of these games I've been carrying with me to every single house I've ever lived in.
Hell yeah. Dylan, what about you on this subject? Because I feel like you're, from what I gather, you're a very like fluid and like creative person, and I'm curious as to like if you have any kind, if your, what do you call? I guess gaming preferences are more rigid than your personality.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it kind of ebbs and flows. Um, Gotta think about this. Um, I think I look for a very specific experience from games. Also, real quick because they just came to mind when as we
Mhm.
were talking. Another couple RPGs I have to shout out as my favorite. Valkyrie Profile one, uh,
Yes.
like Paul mentioned. And then I also love action RPGs. I love The World Ends With You and Odin Sphere.
Oh
But
hell
Oh my
yeah.
god, Odin Sphere,
yeah,
you guys, is so beautiful to like look at, and like the storybook. It's just
yeah,
and
I
like
adore
yeah.
it.
Oh, can I ask you a question? What
Yes.
is it about Valkyrie Profile One that you love?
That's such a good. Yeah.
Um.
Let's get it. Hell yeah.
Okay. All right. It's so the fact that it completely turns RPG structure on its head is like the first thing that jumps out to me because um, there's always this kind of sense of progression throughout an RPG. Like start as like some soldier and or some kid, village gets burned down, you go on an adventure, and being able to fly around and travel the entire world is like that's kind of this huge benchmark of progression. I think what I love about Valkyrie Profile texturally and mechanically that um, you are a god for all intents and purposes. You can travel the world at your leisure. However, you're you are the god of what is basically a shitty 9 to 5 job, and you're reporting to your boss. Um, and I don't know. There's something that like it takes the fact that it gives you kind of like it makes you feel like super powerful, like above the average JRPG party, in terms of like the flavor text and the fiction of. But structurally, you feel limited and confined, in the role that you've been. I think there's an interesting duality there, and there's a conflict there. Very compelling.
Oh yeah. We talked about this a little bit last week about. I'm gonna say that. Just let me say it once. Just let me say the L word once. We talked a little bit about Ludo narrative last week and about how like the way games themes and mechanics tie into each other. And I think Valkyrie Profile. Thank you, Solstice. Valkyrie Profile is a really fucking good example of this that I didn't talk about that much because I didn't want to be repetitive. But the way that that game starts out, you not only are a god, but you smash the shit out of everything in that game. Like the first like 4 hours of it are insanely easy because your character is incredibly overpowered, and that remains the same way throughout the whole game. With the sword or the bow is better, I'd say. But you you are still really good, and you're very dynamic with you can switch anything and everything works, right? And then when you start, and there's a little bit of a spoiler, but when you start questioning your 9 to 5, your boss, the red tape, when you start to question it, that's when the game starts to get tighter and to force you to make decisions. And that's beautiful, man. I don't think any game or any series really ties those things together as well as Valkyrie Profile does. And goddamn. Also, that sprite art, so
Yes,
good.
it's phenomenal.
It's your response is wonderful. Your response is wonderful, and but the only thing I can think about now with Joey talking about the sprite art is just like how awful I think Valkyrie Profile 2 looks now. Like I can't. It's so hard to play. And like you talk about HD, like Vaseline smear. I'm like, you guys, that game invented that shit because it looks awful. I have, if you look at the pages of the strategy guide when they have like screenshots of the game, you're like, what the fuck am I looking at? Yeah. Oh god,
Yeah.
just strategy guides from like 1999 until whenever they stopped making them a couple years ago. Ugh.
Yeah, I think I like there's something about the maybe it's not even the art direction. I think Valkyrie Profile 2, in terms of like the character's fashion and stuff, like in some ways it feels like a solid 3D translation of red art, and then like in other ways it just feels like you could have taken this in any other direction.
No. Yeah. Well, my favorite thing about the
It's funny. No, go ahead. I was just gonna make a stupid comment.
oh,
You're
now
fine.
I have to hear it.
I was gonna say like I've been replaying the Valkyrie series. Usually I scrimble the series, right? Like I just play them all in one. But with Valkyrie Profile, I replayed one recently, and then I played Covenant of the Plume for the first time, and then Elysium, and I'm like kind of scared to go back to Valkyrie Profile 2 because I haven't played it since it came out pretty much. And I remember, bro, you were posting about this. You posted a screenshot of your strategy guide from Valkyrie Profile 2, and I was like, what's that from? It's Valkyrie Profile 2. And then I was like, okay, all right, that's what made me want to replay the series. So thank you, Paul, for opening this door for me once again.
Well, it's because I got the I've been looking forward to Elysium, right? And I got a review code for it, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna review the game. And I wanted to play through the series as well. I only got through so far through the first game, but it's like, dude, it's like, yeah, I'm like afraid to go back and play it because I just remember playing it when I'm in college, popping it in, and just it's not triggering that same response that the first game did. And what I loved about the first game, you guys, it's just so like sorrowful, you know, from from the music especially, you guys, and like when it's 1990 what 9, it's like the music carries it, and I know that he gets such a bad rap sometimes, but it's like, damn, you know, there's
I'm part of the Sakuraba defense force.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
Hell
so
yeah,
am I.
bro. Let's
So am
go.
I.
All right, let's go,
I don't-
Dylan. Spit it out.
Yeah.
Defend this man. Arm the cannons.
Okay, so there's like a weird duality, and of course I can't talk about the Tails music because I don't know what's done by him and what's done by the other guy because there's two composers.
And what's
working
done
on
by the AI algorithm that composes 90% of the Tails music. So that's good.
Sometimes it's so autopilot, but like it's funny because like last year I decided out of spite more than anything, like, all right, I'm gonna listen to a bunch of Sakuraba soundtracks and just give them my honest like opinions. Well, you know, when you're at work for 8 hours a day and you got nothing else to do and you're allowed to go on YouTube. So I think Sakuraba definitely has a style, and unfortunately that like he's kind of become trapped in that style, but I think it feels like for every like 10 songs he has that are like, you know, the forgettable or like overly orchestrated, like just Sakuraba doing Dark Souls again. It feels like he has two bangers.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating going like ping-ponging between those two positions. But like I can't lie, man. When they land, they land.
Baten Kaitos, one of my favorite soundtracks ever made, and I really wish that he did more of that. Like, okay, because he kind of does it with Elysium, the really textural, like it uses a lot of like world folk instruments, sitar used in a really good way, like almost similar to Matsuda sitar with Chrono Trigger, and you love to hear that. Cool warbly effects. He comes from a prog background.
Yeah.
And
I've listened to his albums. They're actually the first one's a little forgettable. The second one's pretty solid though.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, you hear that. I kind of wish that he did a little bit more of that rather than just having it devolve into warbly. But like, yeah, I mean, I Baten Kaitos is fantastic. Valkyrie Profile 1 has a really interesting like 90s almost Red Book audio aesthetic to a lot of its
Yeah.
tones, and like that like really crisp compressed like 80s reverby stuff. And then Golden Sun is like this very like
I was
earthy.
shocked at how much I loved Golden Sun soundtrack. I listened to that for the first time last year. I was like, "Holy! I wish I had
Mhm.
this game as a kid."
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah, so that's a game that's like that's a hard game to get into, I think, in the year of our Lord 2022.
That's been
Is
my understanding.
we talked a bit about like things that take you out of games and some of the other episodes, and my biggest contribution was the intro to Golden Sun 1 being so fucking long.
Oh
And
man.
but yeah, the music in that game is like maybe a little bit disserviced by the GBA because a lot of the tones get shrill, but like
A little skunky there, yeah.
yeah, skunky, yeah. But there's bangers there, man. Paul, any other Sakuraba bangers that you can think of?
So I no, but I thought that the Valkyrie Elysium soundtrack was like I bought it. I was like, it's
Yeah.
good.
I
I
really
was
liked
like,
what I heard in the demos. That's
yeah,
all.
and I like the soundtrack within the game, and I um was able to divorce myself from my expectations from Valkyrie Profile 1 because of Valkyrie Profile 2 and Covenant of the Plume and the online one, the mobile one that they had a couple years ago.
Oh,
It's like
Oh
they put
yeah.
this
Yeah, it's
series
Elise.
through the ringer. They put this series through the ringer, you guys. So like, if you're gonna tell me you're gonna make an action RPG, I'm like, okay. So yeah, that was really good, and I've actually enjoyed the Divine Force soundtrack for the new Star Ocean
yeah,
game.
it's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than it's like everything about that game is better than 5, including the
They
soundtrack.
let Sakuraba out of the Tails mines so he
Oh,
can finally
yeah.
It,
So
and
he's got. I agree. It's like you could. It's like buying like a pop album where you're just like forget. Oh, okay. The singles are here, you guys.
right.
Yeah.
that's actually a really good segue. Valkyrie Elysium, which is something I've been like talking about a lot lately. It's very top of mind. But our main subtopic for this evening is just like new entries in long standing series, or just maybe not long standing series, but like just new entries, revivals, etc. of other RPG series. And I think Elysium is a really fucking good example of this because it switches things up a bit. We were talking a bit about, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here who haven't played Valkyrie Profile, but we were talking a little bit about the structure of that game, and then you have Valkyrie Elysium, which is a lot more straightforward actiony. It's like it plays something between like maybe God of War, DMC, and like I don't even know, maybe like an
It kind of the way the dial combos work make me so games, even though it's not a
Mhm.
Musto game.
I'd see that. I
Um
definitely see that. Um,
uh
So I
call it
don't
an
play
assist.
Bayonetta games, but I read online people comparing it to Bayonetta, but I haven't played those games.
so
I
the
don't know
only
if I agree
thing,
with that.
yeah, I don't. Okay, so the only thing I noticed, this is a really specific, strange thing to say, but the way that you cancel out of combos in Bayonetta is really similar to Valkyrie Elysium. Because if you notice in Valkyrie Elysium, all your moves have insane end lag, and they don't really transition. Like the end of an attack doesn't really transition into another. So it gives you an advanced mechanic of being able to cancel out of stuff with a short hop or a jump, and so that like transitions to air combat or a different kind of flavor. And the game actually is designed around this because a big mechanic of Valkyrie Elysium is these like gems that come out of enemies. So if you parry an attack, if you perfect dodge, if you hit an enemy weak spot, blow up an arm or a tail or something, these orbs come out. And then it's similar to the original Valkyrie games where if you get those orbs, you're able to basically chain your attacks more. So you like basically like hold a button, suck in the orbs, and do a power attack. It's super clunky, but the theory, man, is there. And once you understand that that's how the game is supposed to be played, you're like, oh fuck, it's kind of Giga Brain, right? Like,
The combat definitely started to come together for once I learned that upgrading weapons actually gives you more options in combat. I
mhm.
didn't
Yeah.
realize for like the bulk of the demo. So it's not anything super deep or complex. Like it doesn't really do a whole lot for the fighting game fan in me or the character
Hmm.
action game fan in me. But like the RPG fan in me finds something very satisfying about the progression. Um, which I feel a little guilty to say because I feel like with action RPGs, I kind of want the best of both worlds. But
And just so everyone knows, Cerulean Skies RPG podcast is not in fact endorsed or sponsored by RPGFan.com. Although we love those people, a lot of really good folks there. So just a disclaimer for the listeners. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I feel that, and it's like the thing is about that game is it does the AAA action game bullshit where there's skill trees, you know, and why are there skill trees? I don't, why don't you just have these options unlocked? Like I hate that illusion of freedom that it gives you. And like Paul, did you finish Elysium?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you know that like the game basically it ends on kind of like a wet fart. Like you pretty much get everything at the penultimate chapter, and then the final chapter is basically like 8 battles and then the bosses, which is like a boss gauntlet basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few like to get the best, the true ending is what I would argue is the true ending would have like this gauntlet. Yes, and then they just updated it yesterday with the
Oh, the new shit.
Seraphic Gate and the Hildy's Vengeance. Um, but what I don't like is when they have the post game, or like Final Fantasy 15 did this too with the DLC chapters. When you're giving me DLC chapters, I want to be able to use my data from the game, what I've been doing in the real game. So I hate when the DLC portion is like something super sectioned
Separate?
off. Yeah, it's like separate where it's like, oh, here you like if I'm going to the Seraphic Gate, I want to be able to take what I've been
That's
maxing
bullshit.
out. Instead, they're
yeah,
like, no, here each stage, like we're giving you set items and weapons and that. I'm like, fine, if you want to sell it on that challenge, fine. But even like the Hildy's Vengeance, it's like I thought that there would be because I played a little bit of it last night. It's like it just seems like you're just running through like recycled levels, fighting a recycled boss. I haven't seen a
Mhm.
single cutscene. There's no voice acting like in these scenes. It feels kind of cheap to me, admittedly. So to peel it back a little bit because I don't remember what you were saying. um, yeah, it felt like I'm playing this game, and then all of a sudden it's like you're at the end and they're like, well, here's all this extra shit. And I'm like, well, what am I going to use Nibelung Balesti last battle?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so
uh-huh.
okay, that's a I'll play devil's advocate just a tad here because in the other Valkyrie games the Seraphic Gate is always kind of separate from the main game. Like Covenant of the
Mm.
Plumes Seraphic Gate, which I got to like a couple days ago cuz I've been playing through the other I did all the routes and then so it's like you basically start back at 0 at level 1, nothing carries over, but you can recruit all the other characters from the other routes. And Valkyrie Profile 1, I guess it's a little different because like you do maintain a lot of your stuff. But 2, I remember was very kind of segmented, and so uh, that sucks though, man. That really sucks because having an extra character like Hilda is like I thought there would be like the Bayonetta or DMC thing where you can go through the stages with that character and like have a
Yeah.
new flair to them or whatever.
I thought
Um,
you would see the story from her perspective.
or that, yeah, but nope, nope.
No, it's like here's an opening cutscene where there's no dialogue. I'm like, great,
I
thanks. I'm
have
glad you
done
guys rendered
that.
that after the release of the game.
That's a
Maybe
bummer.
there's something there, but it looks like you're basically being dropped, go to fight a boss, drop, go to fight a boss as you work your way to fight a recycled version of Odin from,
Okay.
you know,
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's really just there if like I don't know. I think about it to. Sorry, I know we try to keep to RPGs, but
No, no,
I
do
feel
do your
like
thing.
yeah, it kind of makes me think of the Virgil mode of Devil May Cry 3, where like here's an open cutscene that features this new alternate playable character, but you're really here for the gameplay experience.
exactly.
Um,
That's the game's like biggest weakness anyway. Is
yeah,
like the way that
exactly.
the story. It's like you have an idea where the story's going anyway. It's like, but just the way it could have been told better. There could have been more of an emphasis story. I liked
Yeah,
her and Harrier. I liked them. I thought that their stories were compelling. I didn't even mind like the Lost Odyssey, like virtual novel text. Not even a virtual novel, just like straight up novel text backstories.
Mhm.
It's just like there should have just been more of it. It felt like, and so I did enjoy the game. I liked playing it. Beautiful music. There's enough of the series DNA in there for me to be able to play this as an action game that's from the same series with the way that they've worked enough in there. I thought some of it was like cleverly worked in there, but still, it just like it doesn't have that same it doesn't have the same heart as the first game did.
Right.
You really like, and I keep coming back to like, well, why do I have that? Would I have that same perspective of Valkyrie Profile One if I'm playing? I can't tell you because I
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like an ever-present question. I mean, speaking personally, I didn't play the Valkyrie profile until I was in college. I want to say like 2013, 2014. Um, Comparatively recently, I would assume. But I fell in love with it, and as you can tell, like from the way I speak about it, I feel like if I was able to extract all these artistic things from it, in the year of our Lord 2013 or whatever, I no, I can't guarantee that you ever feel the same way if you pick it up now, but I think there's a chance.
I think it certainly shows that Valkyrie Profile One is probably a better game than Valkyrie Elysium.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely fair.
Yeah, and I want to hold on to this for just a second because I do want to address. 'Cause this is a really good topic, and I think it could segue into the next point that I think we could talk about. But I do want to address a little bit developmental, logistical stuff about Elysium. So, Elysium, unlike the other three Valkyrie games, I'm not counting Anatomia because I just don't want to count it.
Agreed.
Mobile enthusiasts, don't come for me. This is not about you.
They have no space here, at
Yeah, no,
least
yeah, yeah.
today.
This is not a safe space for mobile enthusiasts. But uh, yeah. So the other three games were developed by Tri-Ace, and Elysium was subcontracted to a company called Soleil, who did Ninjala and a couple other titles, and ostensibly because the Tri-Ace proper were working on Star Ocean 6, but I that's just my guess about why this got
That's kind of what I
subcontracted.
figured.
Yeah. And I think that would have been too much. As far as I know, no Tri-Ace developers actually worked on Elysium. And if anyone actually knows this information, please feel free to correct me. I'm not like trying to be an authority. This is just what I think I know.
Rector got like a special. I'll look that
Yeah,
up.
yeah. But like as a whole, I don't think any developers really worked on making the. I'm sure they had some kind of like a producer role in some way, like ask them questions. But I will say, and to Elysium's defense, it does try to implement elements of VP1 and Covenant of the Plume in a really interesting way. It definitely tries to be mindful of the mechanics because even the what are they called? The projectiles in VP1, the ice projectiles. I for,
Shoot, aren't
I,
they like phot- pho- not photon? That's
Oh, I think it
nuclear.
might be.
I think
Let me
it,
look.
I think you're right. I think it is something P crystals. Let's call them P
Yeah.
crystals for funny pee jokes. Um, yeah, they try to
Oh,
implement that with like the freezing the platforms. They tried to the Einherjar stuff was like very integrative. Um, the what else? The combo system, the orb system I talked about, very reminiscent of VP1. It's directly.
But even like the and like you just mentioned it, but like the way that the Einherjar are mapped to the buttons, like it felt evocative of the first game because it's like in that game you're just pressing the buttons to trigger the attacks,
Hmm.
but it's like they're assigned there, and it's like so. And this is I did write about this in my review of the game. It's like there's enough of this series DNA that they have carried over that is respectful and thoughtful that it feels like a Valkyrie game. And I know a lot of people may not have played it, but what is it called? Valkyria Revolution. It's when Sega tried to make the Valkyria Chronicles and like made an action game, and
Oh
people
yeah, yeah,
hated
yeah.
it because
yeah.
it lacked the like the zeal of the series, the energy of the series. People like we weren't asking for it, and coming down with Elysium, like you almost see this coming down the pike that there's going to be like a negative reception to it because nobody's asking for it. But the developers who have nothing to do with the first three games are, um, I think I wrote like there was enough homage in there to for you to consider this part of the family line,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like yeah, so I like the divine arts, everything. It's just and when you're waiting to hear some of those phrases, like the
Nibelung Valesti, man.
yeah,
Jesus
Nibelung
Christ.
Valesti, like
Yeah.
my noble Einherjar, and like hear it, and I'm like hell yeah,
It's
and like
the
I thought the
Avengers
voice,
Assemble of Valkyrie
yep,
games.
Yeah. No,
and
come to me,
the
Dark Warriors. Battle awaits us. That's my
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
favorite.
yep, yep, yep.
the voice acting I thought was great too.
I thought it
So
was
yeah,
good too. I really liked the Valkyrie's voice. I think that like there's a okay, so the Einherjar definitely have a bit of a mommy thing with her. Like it's
yeah,
like the horny side of mommy, and
especially Argon, whatever his name is.
yeah, 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 yeah. But like I think even the Einherjar are designed with a lot of the old games ethos in mind. The
Yep.
problem is that like the end result, it just feels a little bit weak and vague. Like it had such a good base. That game could have been like one of the best games of this generation, and it was like it's kind of just stuck in.
Serviceable.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like I really do like it. I think it's a game I'd recommend to a lot of people. It's satisfying. It's easy to pick up, and it's a
In a
short
weird
game.
way,
Hmm?
I was just gonna say, in a weird way, the combat to Neo the World, like what I would want an action Valkyrie profile RPG play like.
So I haven't.
How like every character's mapped to different buttons. Oh yeah, sorry, I was about to explain.
No, no, yeah, I haven't played Neo, so I wanted to showcase my ignorance. Paul, did you play Neo?
I did a bit. I think but I played the first one. I only played the first one.
Okay.
So yeah, so please Neo explain.
Yeah, so I've only played through the first couple days. Just other stuff has been stealing my attention, but I really enjoy so different character equips one pin. For people who haven't played, the pins are what you cast different spells called psychs. Um, but pin is kind of mapped to a button, and you give character a button, so that character is mapped to that button. It's easier to like experiment when you have the game in front of you than it is to explain it to someone who hasn't picked the game up. But essentially, each character is mapped to a button on the dual sense in my case, whatever control.
Mhm.
And so you're basically switching between different buttons to summon the different characters to do the different attacks. I believe they all have variable stats based on what you feed them. It's been a while though, so don't quote me on that. Um, in a way, you feel like you're controlling an entire team at once, same way that you do when you play the original Valkyrie profile. Whereas when I played the demo for Valkyrie Elysium, you are primarily playing as the Valkyrie, and you summon Ryan Harriar as assist, who has to spell or do like some AI takes over after you summon them,
Mhm.
and it works. But I feel like when I think Valkyrie profile, ironically, my brain defaults to what Neo Tuli was giving me a bit more than Valkyrie Elysium.
Oh, interesting. And I know that Tri-Ace also did a game called Exist Archive, which I have not played. I just there it is.
Oh,
This
hey,
man
there
picked
we
it
go.
right up. I actually just got it. It's super cheap, by the way. It looks really pretty. It's like $15 physical, new.
That's how much. Yeah, I think I got that for the same price. And it's like you look at the back of the box. On one fateful day, we were killed by, quote, God, end quote. Our story began as our lives ended, and it's like, oh, you're like, this sounds pretty interesting, and the mechanics, and that's why I picked this up. It's like you're like, Tri-Ace made this. You're like, there's a physical manual
Yeah,
to
Oh
this.
wow,
You're like, what
fancy.
on earth? And when does this publish? It's like, okay, I want
2016
to. Okay,
came out. Yeah,
16 to have the manual, you're like, this has got to be good. Sadly, it's not.
it's not.
Oh,
Oh, rip,
I
rip.
have a hard time understanding. And when you play it, maybe you can tell me because I played, I think like maybe like 2 or 3 hours, and I was like having a hard time of like discerning whether or not I was progressing.
Mhm.
And it's
weird.
like it
That's a
just
Tri-Ace problem.
yeah,
That's
it's
also
like,
fair.
but not in like the fun way where you're like you're playing Valkyrie
Yeah.
Profile 1, you're just when you get to that. You do that opening dungeon. It's like here's a world map. No, it's like and I don't really care for like the super deformed like chibi. Um, yeah, it's like it's hard to show you on the box, but it's like here you
I
guys
feel
go.
like I've seen gameplay of this before.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I
like
did see the art style is like a little questionable, like for me, for
it's
my
not like
taste.
cute like super deformed Super Nintendo. It's like it's just like it's like very weird like Valkyrie Profile 2 graphics kind of where you're like
It
wait a
makes me
minute.
think of Tales of Legendia. If anyone
I
Oh,
remembers
see
what
that.
that
I
game looked
definitely
like.
see that.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Which like that style has grown on me over time, but it's definitely not something I don't seek that out, right? Like that's
No.
just something that
Yeah, if it's
I
there, you
kind of
deal
grow
with
to like.
it, right?
Yeah,
Like it's just something you
exactly.
gotta just
Exactly.
stomach. Yeah, no, I feel that too. Also Indivisible, the indie game by the is it the Skull Girls dev who sucks ass as
Yeah,
a
yeah,
person?
Lab Zero.
Yeah,
Yeah, the head of that.
What's the story behind that?
I don't. Dylan, do you know the details of
uh
this?
it's been a while, so I don't remember them verbatim, but essentially, the head developer at Lab Zero pulled rank a lot, and basically, I from my understanding, he basically ran the development of into the ground because he shot down like everyone else's ideas,
Mm,
and didn't even really seem like he wanted to make a Valkyrie profile style game in the first place. Um, this is in addition to like, I guess just being a generally uncomfortable guy to work for. So
yeah,
everybody else left, and I think they formed their own company, and they still have the rights to Skullgirls. So it all
that's right.
works.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's my understanding of the situation. I hope if anyone in chat is, if I'm wrong, you can kind of fill in the blanks there.
Yeah. And I just want to address something about this podcast and Cerulean Skies in general is that like there's a lot of people who would come into this discussion with the attitude of like, oh, who fucking cares? It's a developer. Keep politics out of that. And I will say, literally, shove a fucking piece of broken, rusted metal up your ass. Fuck you. No. Have some contextual and social awareness about the media you consume, you stupid motherfucker. And I've already seen comments like this on the Google podcast page. And it's like, sometimes people, maybe it might help to step out of a leftist bubble and like literally, no, fuck you. Blow bubbles with your own ass on your own time. Fuck you.
I like
Anyway,
my
I just
Making your
bubble.
games, and they have to be in a well spaced mentally games to really be worth anything. I think
yeah,
so.
yep. But dude, all your favorite games in the '90s, those were crunched by Japanese developers, and it's like, bro, yeah, it's a different time. It's a different time. It's a different context. Like,
We have to try to be better.
yes,
Right.
exactly.
It's like there's definitely like um drawbacks, right? There are drawbacks to every profession, but it's like you're not expecting when you're going into any profession that you're expecting to have some sort of like incredible emotional, mental, physical tax on you um, every at regular intervals, for the sake of productivity. That's why like when you look at like accountants, people getting all stressed out about tax season, it's like why? Why are you like no?
Yeah. If
Every
you are
season's a busy season, you guys, if you let it be.
Yeah.
if you are the sort of person, and this is gonna be my last piece on this, and then I'll move on. Like, if you are the sort of person who thinks that games are art, but also think that like the people making that art have to suffer for it to be art, like that's come on, don't be like that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I know. I agree with you.
Yep.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing where when people like roll their eyes at like directors or like people in power in Hollywood like being abusive, and it's like, well, no one's going to
Right.
work. No one's going to work to get harassed, and it's not just necessarily like sexual. It could be just like the type of like uncomfortable harassment that you hear. I'm thinking of like the guy from the
I'm thinking of
Goldbergs.
I was
Mhm.
thinking of Shelley Duvall in The Shining.
Oh, that's a really good example. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like she
I
basically
know about that
quit
example.
acting after that. Oh yeah, so she was pushed so hard during the filming of The Shining, like in certain shots she's actually having a mental breakdown.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like she basically quit acting after that, and it's like I don't like seeing stuff like that. I don't
No.
like having all this talent like lose their passion because pushed too hard. sure, the thing that you got, the final product that you got, first of all, if we're calling art product, it's not art. Second of all, um,
The secondary
Or
thing is it's a secondary product basically. Like
right.
it can be a product, but it shouldn't be the
You shouldn't
focus.
see it as product. Like, you gotta like be able to turn anyway. Um, like sure, you got that game you like, but like have fun anticipating the sequel, and then learning that the sequel sucks because all the people that made that first game you really like left the industry.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, this is a good soapbox to segue with because
Okay.
do you think that this kind of stuff, this developmental paradigm shift of like becoming more aware of working conditions and like speaking out and up about problematic work environments, do you think this has contributed to some of the negativity or mixed results from some of these games, or vice versa? Like what's the take?
The unfortunate reality, I think, is like so much stuff go. I feel like there are so many simultaneous elements at play here, and I don't think there's a simple answer for that. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about.
Paul, what about you? Because I feel like you have a lot of vocational experience dealing with this kind of stuff, or at least are more aware of it than most.
So to me, it's like I just think that, and I don't know if I'm answering the question. I think what we see a lot like now is like just kind of emphasis to get the product out, and that they want to fix it afterwards. And like even like Valkyrie Elysium again, it's like before they're even in releasing the game, they're like, oh well, we've got like this post-released update coming, and it's gonna have like these new modes, etc. And it's like, well, why? Why can't we get a game shipped and have it just be complete? And I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, it's capitalism. But it's like capitalism's kind of like the force
It's
that like this oppressive force that's grinding everything down, like these workers. Um, and we see that in every industry, and we see the burnout in particular in games. Not even just like in games, like uh, the creation of them, even like in games journalism. I mean, do you see just like the bloodbath, and you see these layoffs happening all over the place?
yeah.
Um, so it's just because we're watching how all of this is just modified, and it's reduced to how much money it can make for the shareholders of whatever giant um, private equity firm is the biggest stakeholder in these companies that we loved growing up. Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that we see in games now. Is like so many of these like soulless, vapid games that are rushed out the door so that they can meet their quarterly deadlines or that they can meet the fiscal year. And you have this in the whether or not this is like a new Square Enix like year of 2022. I think a lot of it is like cynically. I think a lot of it is them being like, let's get these out so we can tally all up these AA game sales for our fiscal year end.
Oversaturate the market, keep the market awareness as Square Enix is still at the forefront of RPGs, whether or not those
Yeah.
RPGs are middling or not. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
I have three kind of points to this, and one, it's like it's exactly like what you said. There's the bottom line, right? And I think the bottom line has always been there for game companies, pretty much for the most part. Even in the '80s, like that was always a thing. Like Final Fantasy, right? Like even Final Fantasy's development, like it was like one of many ideas, and Sakaguchi had a campaign for it because Square didn't think it'd be profitable. And so like that's always a thing. And then you have the landscape and like just the logistics and mechanics of designing games now having to check so many boxes. And this isn't always a bad thing because it leads to stuff like more accessibility, right? More accessibility options, more of a focus on that kind of thing means longer development time. Or at least at first until that gets kind of more streamlined. And so that's all. And also modern graphics, porting stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff is easier. Game development as a whole is more accessible now than it was in the '80s because you could see what the fuck you're doing. There's integrative software, like there's all sorts of cool tricks and stuff like that. The grammar is there, right? And so that's another thing. But and the last part is that like you now there's kind of there's more of a normalized sense of what game development is supposed to look like, right? And that means like that means that affects labor, and that affects like just working conditions period. Like even Japan has gotten better about working conditions for developers than they were in the 80s and 90s. I mean, maybe not much, but like, you know, it's a little bit, they're a little bit more aware of it because those things are big media topics. And not only that, but you also you have this kind of like mentality from people. It's the, oh, I could work 16 hours, I work 58 hours a week, why can't you? That kind of aspect that comes from uh you know, like just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And just because these developers can crunch doesn't mean that they should. And yeah, sometimes that led to really cool stuff like FF6 being made in 8 months or whatever. All those crazy fucking turnaround times for development that definitely took way longer than it does now in a general sense. So it's like I don't know. It's like it's easy to look at the past and try to compare like a Chrono Trigger or a Valkyrie Profile to Elysium or to FF15 or something like that, but it's just such a multifaceted topic that I don't think people fully understand the nuance of, and I think we're still figuring it out.
I think also as not just RPG games created as engines, software, hardware, um, market expectations, demands. Like people don't just want people don't just want Final Fantasy VI, no matter how much they say they do. They kind of want something that'll blow them away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying we don't want Final Fantasy. I'm talking about the market and I see Paul leaning back now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I want Final Fantasy, but you know what I mean.
Don't you guys
But
have
it's
phones? The Pixel remasters out on phones. I'm sorry, that
well,
was I didn't mean
oh,
that.
but I get what you're saying. Like Square Enix definitely is like, well, we re-released it. Also, by the way, thanks Valkyrie Elysium for giving Square Enix an excuse to re-release Valkyrie
Lenith.
Profile Lenith
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
cases.
They delayed it. Why did they have to? Why are you delaying a port of a 23-year-old game?
I'm
Market
assuming,
probably release dates, release windows.
yeah. Well, my understanding, people were thinking that it was going to be a port. Probably should,
Mm.
but you know what I mean. Um, like it was missing certain features that were even in Valkyrie Profile Lemon for
Oh,
the
weird.
PSP. Uh, I don't remember if that's maybe no. I think it was a direct port of the PSP version without taking into account like improvement made for the mobile port or something like.
Yeah, okay,
There
that
were
makes
no
sense.
improvements made to the port, you guys. They added in-app purchases.
There was some talking point that I can't think of right now.
Okay, my guess.
Or Stu, trust me.
Right, no, I think I believe that. I feel like that's pretty accurate. And my guess is because you know how PlayStation it's a PlayStation exclusive, and you know how PlayStation has those like the new like the PS Plus stuff where you can get the PSP games and PS3 games. I forgot what it's called.
PS Now, I think. Oh no,
No, not
there's
now.
that other thing.
The new thing that the new PS Plus tiers that they added where you have the old game. So my guess is they didn't want to just do that. They wanted to release a standalone port, so it wasn't or a standalone client rather than just a thing that gets branded as the PSP port. I could be wrong. That could be wrong, but maybe it's just that delineation of that.
Here you guys go. $5.99. Pension assistance, triple EXP and materialism. $8.99. Double damage, immunity, and quick healing in battle. $5.99. The completionist kit, all seeing and all knowing. Or you can spend. I mean, really, let's see.
This port was already $20.
Yeah, but you could spend an additional 9, 15. You could spend an additional $23 on in-app purchases for your Valkyrie Profile 1 experience. That's the part of me. That's the Square Enix that thinks, yeah, they were like, let's just line up these games so that if you think one is bad, you won't even have time to play it because another one comes out.
Do you know who did that port? by the way,
of
Valkyrie Profile
Valkyrie
Lenneth, the
Profile.
mobile port?
oh, I have no
Because
idea.
I know that Tri-Ace got bought out by, or at least is partially owned by like a mobile game developer now, and so I think a big part of their developmental staff is Venn diagrammed, overlapped with a lot of mobile stuff. I feel like you really see that in Star Ocean 6. Actually, yeah, let's continue. Let's talk about a little bit more about Star Ocean 6 because this is another really good game to talk about. So, Dylan, before the podcast, you were talking. Wait, no, was it Paul that you were just playing Star Ocean 5? Sorry.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was playing Star Ocean 5.
So, what do you think? Because this is something we haven't really touched on quite yet. But what do you think caused some of the sort of questionable decisions with Star Ocean 5 that led to a semi course correction with 6?
I think with 5, it just seemed like they had no budget and that they were like, okay, we have to make a game on a shoestring budget and it has to come out before Final Fantasy 15. I felt like that were the marching orders. And I remember playing this game in it was like summer of 2016, so in a couple months before Final Fantasy 15 comes out. I remember playing it and being like, they sucked the budget for this game dry and pumped it into 15. I'm like, I just know it. It was like there were no cutscenes. There were no maybe at like the beginning and the end of the game, but it's like entire swaths
Yeah.
of like conversation would be happening where it's like in the in-game engine, so none of the characters are moving, and like you could move the camera, you could move around, but everyone's just moving their mouth. There's no like, and there's no like sync. It's just like that was terrible. I remember it's like the final encounter, but with the final boss before the battle begins, like scatter while you're just walking
Yeah,
your character
yeah.
around.
I remember that.
And it was just like and the thing that agitated me the most about Star Ocean 5 is the game like literally gives you like a save prompt and tells you, it's like, are you sure you want to leave the planet, because you may not be back here for a very long time. And you're like, yeah, I'm ready to see what is out there. I swear to God, you get on a spaceship, you go out there, you like fight a couple battles in the spaceship, and then where does the game take you? But back to the planet
Oh my
for the
God.
rest of the game.
By the way, I got kind of scared at your condescending middle school teacher voice there, Paul. Like that was honestly very imposing. Like I felt like an idiot, and that wasn't even directed at me. Ouch.
Man, hey, just be glad this isn't a deposition, man.
Oh boy, I got a good story about that. I'll tell you about this after the podcast.
So it's like, I think Star Ocean 5, and like I remember playing this game, like I'm like, this is the last Star Ocean game coming out ever. Like
That's what I thought.
yeah, and then and I remember I don't know when Star Ocean this came out, but I remember playing it and being like, this game has better production values than the one I just played on the PlayStation 4. Like, what the fuck?
And
so
Nipro Japan, that's the company that bought Tri-Ace, and they're like primarily like a mobile developer, and they bought them in 2015. So my guess is that transition, because SO5 came out in 2016, so my guess is that transition was probably kind of rough on the budget, and then I'm just fucking spitballing ideas. And then you had a mobile company be like, okay, we're taking control of some of your assets or whatever. We're going to give you more money to make something that we are more focused on. So that actually probably makes a lot of sense. That game
it would
had
make
more
sense
of a
to me
budget.
because like Star Ocean 6 just like it is, to me, it is the Tales of Arise of the Star Ocean series, basically.
Mhm.
And like Tales of, and it's funny because we're talking about like the dire straits of Tri-Ace, and like we're talking about the in-app purchases in Valkyrie Profile 1 on mobile devices, but it was like, what the fuck was with the in-app purchases in Tales of Arise? I know they patched it out.
Seriously, what?
Yeah, you would go to a campfire and
Yep.
characters would be sitting, and like Owlet would be sitting on cute little Rinwell, and all of a sudden it'd be like flashing, like breaking news,
buy
like
this
CNN
shit.
ticker. It's like,
You're
you want some
kidding.
costumes, kid? You want some costumes?
I'm not taking Paul's candy, man. I don't know. That's
My God.
That's full of
Oh,
Neptune. I'm gonna open that candy. It's gonna be full of Neptunia. I hate this.
Oh, my candy. The rainbow fentanyl. 100%. It's like, you're coming to my.
It's inclusive.
So this at least this Halloween was amazing because it was like you're finally starting to see people are laughing at the idea that like people are spending thousands of dollars to hide drugs in candy to give to strange kids. It's like no one's doing that with their drugs, man. In this economy, like they're throwing thumbtacks in your candy and then sticking it in. Like you're way more liable to get a razor blade in your butterfinger.
Dude, it's funny enough. I replayed the Lunar games recently, and there's like 5 jokes about that in the working design script about like giving kids candy, and it like 90s, man, different time.
Designs was like built different.
You guys, what about the Lunar 2 joke about Bill Clinton?
Oh,
There's a
love
Lunar
it.
2 joke about Bill Clinton within like the
Kidding.
first 10
my
minutes.
God.
Yeah, it's
And,
in
like-
Eternal Blue, Dylan. It's good. It's
My
good.
brother has a copy of that. I need to at least get that far.
I think there's a
gotta check that
screenshot
out.
of the look at like the mini strategy guide that's in the collector's edition. It's like printed off in there. It's like a Bill Clinton joke. And I recently replayed Magic Knight Ray Earth. I actually played it for the first time for the Saturn. And that's another. And I remember, because I used to love working. You showed me back when I was like 12 years old. You showed me a game with that logo on there. I'm like, I'm either buying it or stealing it. By the time I walk out of here. And I disclaimer, never stolen anything. And now, if I see it now, I'm like groaning because that there's going to be like some like weird ass like blowjob joke or something that split in there,
Oh, it's
or
really...
like just like some really
They
weird
use the
like
R slur
1990s
a
joke.
lot.
Oh, yeah,
too.
man.
What has working designs done in the last 15 years?
Nothing.
I don't...
Victor Ireland kind of. There's a lot of stuff about him that kind of is questionable.
And
yeah.
So much of it is like more. It's like like culturally, right? We're looking at it. Like I'm rewatching season 1 of Buffy and like season 2 of Buffy, and like the amount of time you hear someone use the R word, like in the show that aired on television, you're like, wait a minute.
When we were streaming Final Fantasy VII, my friend Dalton, he said something about a line of dialogue Tifa has in that game.
Yeah. She calls Barrett the R word because, or no, she exclaims it rather when they're going up the stairs, I believe, in the Shinra. Yeah. I could be wrong, I think, but I feel like
that's exactly what happens. As Barrett's like complaining about the long climb, Tifa she's already kind of fed up with the climb, so she takes it out on Barrett.
Yeah.
And calls him an ableist slur, which I guess is better than another type of slur, but
which...
not really.
She's really
not
mad
really.
That. Really mad about that arm, so she
Yeah,
decides
yeah,
to call ableist slur.
Yeah.
No, it's just one of those things that it's like, oh, come on. And so with working designs, it's like I was playing, and I think I tweeted about it. Like in 2021 though. I'm playing this game, and it's just like the language that they're using is just like, oh god. I have to find a screenshot of it because it was just like...
Props to my boy Gordon GameDad7 on Twitter, who has been playing through the Lunar games and like keeping me up to date with his experiences and the comparing and contrasting of like the guide, because he's like using the actual working designs guide to play off of it. It's been a trip. But also I do want to say that Tifa is the white liberal who is super progressive until the black family moves in next door.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the Indian family moves in and she's like, it's really cool that the neighborhood's coming up and like getting diverse, but like I just wish they wouldn't cook their food so much.
Yeah.
Like that's Tifa, baby.
It's so potent.
Yeah. It's like, ooh, that must be spicy.
Like, I would meet Tifa, or she would be like, wow, there's so many consonants, bro, in your last name. Or like asking me like my nation of origin. I went to court one time when I was like a baby lawyer, and like the bailiff at the door, like the security guard, like looks at my card, and he was like, oh, it's like 2013, so they could get away with that. He was like, where are you from? And I was like, took my card back, and I was like, I was born in Livonia, which is like in Metro Detroit. I was like, I'm Catholic born in Livonia. Like, what is your problem, sir?
Where are you from?
Yeah, where are you from with your handlebar mustache, court bailiff?
Oh God.
All this being said, Aerith is invited to the cookout.
Yeah, that's fair. And she would get along so well with the OGs, man. Like,
absolutely. Absolutely.
But
especially remake it.
Especially
remake
it.
True, yeah, that's
remake
very...
Aerith is that was like one of those things. It was like we so seldom get to see something like that where you are watching. To me, and that's why, and maybe if Joey, if your podcast talking about Final Fantasy, what hit with me on remake was that playing remake felt like experiencing Final Fantasy VII for the first time, because it was like
Mm,
it was showing me in graphics the way that I was experiencing it in my head playing it, with like, because the same way that the developers were limited with what they had and how they could project like what they were trying to do, it was like the way I was able to internalize that and process it at that age, in that time in like existence, was also limited because I'm a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, and it's like I'm not able. So like even the what you're seeing on the screen is the way you're interpreting it. I'm like, and now to see it again all these years later, it's like I'm like playing what I thought I was playing. You know,
right,
just like the
right.
way that these places seem so alive. I thought Seven remake. I thought it hit it out the park for the almost entirely hit it out the park.
Yeah, and so I want to address a bit of like because you're talking about the visual style and aesthetic. I want to address a kind of superficial element that I'll lead into a point about another game that I feel like is like a new entry in a series or whatever. And so it's like, you look at FF7R and it looks like nostalgia. It looks like something that you're familiar with, right? Now, you have a game like Soul Hackers 2, for example, that looks markedly different from its predecessor. And keep in mind, I have not played this game yet, but I think that this point is still important because just the superficial aspect of it, right? If for no better reason, I'm explaining it's a market test, right? Like a QA session. Um, and so like, okay, the first Soul Hackers 2 is technically like the third game in a sub series, right? Or I guess technically you could call it the fifth, because it's Devil Summoner,
Oh
Soul
yeah, dude.
Hackers, then Raito Kuzunoha 1 and 2, and then Soul Hackers 2 technically, but like in the sorry, I don't mean to get pedantic, but I have to talk about this. So, but technically, like the two Raito games are kind of action RPGs, are very different, like gameplay wise. But Devil Summoner and Soul Hackers 1 are really similar gameplay wise, but Soul Hackers 1 like is a whole new aesthetic change. Way brighter, because Devil Summoner 1 still looks very much like older SMT, muted colors, earthy tones, kind of looking like a lot like Dylan's door in the back there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and Soul Hackers is cyber. Oh, damn! You got the special
There we go.
edition.
Nice,
Hell
nice.
yeah! By the way, fucking love that game. Please play Soul Hackers 1 if you guys have not. That game is like,
It's good.
if
It's
at
a
the
good
very
game.
least it'll be a sexual awakening for something in you. Um, but
It's just such a good game.
it's
Such
a
a good
good
game.
I'll
it's a
probably have to pick it up after I finish that tree.
pure dude. That's a really good follow up to Etrian Odyssey. Let me tell you. Um, but yeah, so that game is like a very different stylistically game. It's more cyberpunk. It's less like modern. And then so I get that people were saying, well, Soul Hackers 2 is a very, it's not weird that it's different, right? Because it's more like anime. It's more like modern Atlas.
The way
But
I think about the sorry, I was
no,
just
no, no.
gonna
Go ahead, go
chime in
ahead,
real
go ahead.
quick.
Because you're
No,
probably
I
gonna
want to
say
hear.
what I.
I need to hear what Joey was gonna. Need
Okay,
to
yeah,
hear.
yeah. Go ahead, Joey. I'll let you say
I,
it first, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, yeah, that's true, but also, like, you took this what makes Soul Hackers 1 really interesting, and like the vibe is gone, and maybe the game is great. I'm sure it's probably good, but it's not. But like, I don't ever want to judge a game by its visuals, right? But like when aesthetic is deeply tied into tone, we have a meme. It's really in Skies. We call it feels based, right? When it's deeply tied into the tone of the game and the way it looks and its themes and messaging, there's a kind of uh, dissonance there. So, but sorry, Dylan, go ahead, man. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, all I was going to say is, and keep in mind, this is from an outsider's perspective, basing this completely off of vibes and intuition. So everything I say may probably. However, all that to say, I feel like my impression of both Soul Hackers games is that they are kind of being cyberpunk works. They are kind of um Akihabara notions of aesthetics and technology
Hmm.
and like kind of how those two intermingle. So I think in the 21st century, as time has gone on and as gaming has become a more fashionable thing, as like tech geek stuff has become a little bit more fashion focused, like you get a Twitch stream, their PC gaming rig, and it's got all the colorful lights and everything. I think Soul Hackers 2's change in aesthetic is trying to reflect that. Like this is a modern
Yes,
cyberpunk work. Um, Whether or not it does that successfully is a whole nother thing. I don't want to be presumptuous and act like I know Soul Hackers better than the people who actually have played it. Um, but I think that's kind of my takeaway, and it's
it's a really good
interesting.
point. Really good.
Yeah, I've tried to like divorce because even though I haven't played Soul Hackers, I'm nostalgic for that because I love Serial Experiments Lane, which kind of has like a
Oh yeah.
similar aesthetic that it plays with. Um, Ergo Proxy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, and Soul Hackers 2 unfortunately does not scratch that same itch. And I know that's my own nostalgia, putting my bias against that aesthetic. But I guess like there's a part of me that's like I wish I knew what the tech geek like more in Japan. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at.
that's a good point. Yeah, because at one point you have to like divorce, like you said, divorce your expectations from what like might be a cultural thing, and that's a really good point. And I saw Paul, I saw you bust out the two Raito games, and I'm very
Yeah.
jealous because I don't own those,
Let's
and
see 'em.
they're
These are
very
still sealed,
expensive.
you guys. They're
Oh
still
my
Oh,
god,
sealed.
dude! Wait, do
yo,
you
holy
is
shit.
that part of the one that comes with the Jack Frost, the Raito Jack
Hell
Frost?
no.
Oh, okay,
I
because
Oh,
thought
like
man.
these like
that's like a $400 CE right now, maybe even
I
more.
I saw one of those in my local game store back in high school. And because I was a poor broke ass high schooler, I couldn't buy it. Like I didn't think it was a smart financial decision, but now I'm
Just
like I should have went for it.
have you tried not being poor, Dylan? Is that something that you've tried?
I told you at the start of this podcast I'm an actor, so
Oh fuck yeah,
I made
yeah.
my bed. I gotta lie in it now.
But yeah, so I don't mean to truncate any discussion, but I do, we are kind of winding down on time a bit. So I do want to just kind of ask a little bit like one closing topic because there's a lot of stuff we didn't really talk
There
about.
was one oh yeah, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
There was one topic on the docket
Mhm.
that I saw that kind of caught my attention. I think it was story driven RPGs versus like where do you stand on like the story versus gameplay
Mhm.
sliding scale. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
But if you had something you wanted to talk about.
yeah, yeah. I got well, we'll use it as a question. Both of you guys, while I kind of go down the list of kind of newer entries and series real quick, I'll just fire them off like an Uzi.
Okay.
Think about where you guys would fall on that scale. So, like, 0 would be full gameplay and 10 would be full story. Where do you fall on that spectrum? So, here's a short list of some newer or revival entries in a series. I'm probably forgetting a lot of stuff. Got Valkyrie Elysium, Star Ocean 6, Echoes of Mana for mobile, Soul Hackers 2, SMT5, which that's a big topic right there. Bravely
Yeah.
Default 2, very divisive. And I think the thing I try to focus on here were like kind of more divisive. And Aiden Chronicle, which I guess is kind of cheating because it's a spiritual successor to Suikoden. Um, Tales of Arise, which we touched on, FF16, which hasn't come out yet. Romancing Saga Reuniverse, the first Saga game since Scarlet Grace. It's a mobile game, sure, but it's still there. Scarlet and Violet Pokemon coming up soon. Baldur's Gate 3. This is a big fucking one I kind of regret not talking about. The Xenoblade kind of revival of what the Xeno series is. That's a big thing to talk about. Rune Factory 5 was another new entry in a series that was kind of divisive. And then you got ports and remasters and remakes that are coming out very soon or have come out. Tactics Ogre Reborn tomorrow. Front Mission first, which I call it front missionary position first. Mass
you don't
Effect.
like the graphics?
They're that looks like a. That's speaking of mobile games. Mass Effect
Yeah.
Legendary Collection, Near Replicant, the new version, Chrono Cross, Legend of Mana, all that kind of stuff. just kind of going off of like new entries, just to have them there in back of mind, so if listeners can think about it and kind of maybe engage. Maybe always feel free to talk about this kind of stuff on the Discord with us. Be interesting to get some post mortem discussion. But did you guys think about where you fall on that spectrum?
Um, so in respect to these games specifically, or just like on the whole?
On the whole, I would say.
Um, I would say that for me, I am a more gameplay oriented RPG player, not necessarily like I need a chunky battle system, but I think I prioritize exploration in RPG. I like that feeling of going off the beaten path, finding a weapon that might not be the strongest, but like there's something about it that like I can creatively find certain, like if I find a mage masher in Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
even if like it's not the strongest weapon, it certainly has its own useful application against monsters that cast spells. Um, and so that's the type of stuff I find exciting in RPG. I think for me, the story I only really need like point me in a direction and get me like invested in resolution of that little arc is. That's why Dragon Quest is one of my favorites because it's more
Mm-hmm.
about like adventure and like here are some townspeople that need help. All right, I helped them. On to the next one. Um, that's the flow I prefer.
So on a number scale, 0 being
I
pure
would
gameplay,
say
10 story.
I would say
Okay, cool.
I
Paul,
would
what
say
about you, man? I'm really curious as
No,
to where you are here.
I'm kind of the same number because it's like if the gameplay systems are sufficient, like kind of like I keep going to Valkyrie Elysium, like the gameplay systems are sufficient enough to get me to the end, even when the story's lacking.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like it's just really hard for me to find games like in this modern era where I really find that they really nail the story out of the like they hit the story out of the park. If not necessarily like what the actual terms of the story are, but just like in presentation, because it's like so many games like Final Fantasy 15. You know, when you're reading all half the story, you're reading in like the data logs, and like even in
Mm-hmm.
you know, you have to spend half the time getting the gist of the tale and like in side screens in the menu. Like it takes me out of the immersion. So I've become so much more willing to accept like a poorly told story or like a bare bones story because as long as the gameplay mechanics are there, I'm willing to. It closes that gap for me.
I think
Okay.
for me, this is just something you said made me think about. Um, Final Fantasy 12 being one of my favorite RPGs, I think a story for me needs to be more evocative than it needs.
Yeah, that's
12 is
true.
such a good job. 12 is such a good job though because it's like so much of that story is told off screen, but
Yeah,
it's in an organic way that feels natural, as
yeah.
opposed to in Final Fantasy 15. There's so much stuff that's happening to Noctis's world, and his
A
response
huge chunk
is
of it, the movie that came out
yeah.
before the game did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The world building in 15 is poorly done, and it's like the story itself is like you think about it, and it's like when you take the time to make a fucking chronological order of everything, like tell the story to you in the way that they should have told you, or at least you
Mhm.
made it accessible. You're like, wow, this actually has some like, really beautiful themes. The way
Mm-hmm.
that the story ends, it's like you know, you're like, wow, okay, it's not as bad as these that came out on release day would have you think. Problem is, no one's ever going to get to it, you know,
Right.
and no,
Yeah.
and
Or
then when
think about it in
you
that way.
yeah, or like or when you tell it in such a fragmented way, and like 13 had this problem too. It's like when you tell it in like this really fragmented way where you have to spend you're learning the lore through text boxes. It's like, well, I can just go to Wikipedia and read about it and
Yeah.
get
Right.
just as much satisfaction from it. Um, Star Ocean 6, I feel like has done a good job with their world building. I'm not done with the game, so maybe it'll put the bed at the end. But it feels evocative of Star Ocean 2 to me. It feels evocative of like those PlayStation era RPGs where there's a lot of exploration, even though there it really isn't. You know, the open world, like the big areas are kind of small to move so quickly, and like the treasure chest with like the secret weapons, they're just hidden. But still, you're rewarded for going to that extra corner.
Yeah,
Um,
you definitely are.
even
Yeah.
like yeah, so I could talk all day about anything, you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
same.
I'm
And
having a
that,
blast right now. So like, yeah.
yeah, that's what sucks about this is that like even though like fortunately for a podcast format that's like very loose like this, an
Gotta
hour and a
put a
half
plug on
flies
it.
by, and
Yeah.
there's always stuff that you want to say. Even if this was rigidly organized, like you still end up falling into that position if you're passionate about a subject, and I think that's cool. And uh, it sucks that you have to kind of put a lid on stuff, right? But that's always the future, man. The future is here. And speaking of putting a lid on stuff, I do want to leave you guys with one quick. If you can't answer this fairly quickly, if you're feeling up to it, what's one thing that new entries in a long-standing series can do to not have mixed results? And I'll quickly start, and I'll say that, like, focus more on just the quality of the individual piece. You don't have to like FF16, right? FF16 doesn't have to do the same thing that FF7 did or FF14 does. It just has to be good in its own right. And I feel like nowadays with the whole MCU bloat stuff, everything is about building up a grand big series. And yeah, that's kind of part of video games, but like, just tell a good self-contained story, tell a good self-contained piece of gameplay, a nice little box to put things in. And I know that's easier said than done, but that's my answer. Paul, how about you?
Just like respect the series that you're just respect the series that the game that you're working on is coming from. There's a reason it's successful. There's a reason why they're making a new game. Um, you don't have to emulate it. You don't have to copy it, but just show that you have done your homework.
Absolutely. That's very succinct. Dylan, how about you?
Yeah. God, this is a big question because I feel like I feel different ways about different Final Fantasy I default to. Go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think important is like, yeah, I feel like have enough respect for this that like there are things that like fans will pick up on. Obviously, don't want to completely alienate by having something so far removed that it's not relatable to legacy fans. That being said, though, I feel like what's really important is make the game that you want to make. Um, I think if you are a fan of RPGs, have thoughts about the systems, all basically how games are played, and there's a certain way you want to play that game. Make that game, because even if you some people along the way, like people are gonna still see that they're gonna see like this person had a vision for what RPGs, and they're going to respect it on some level. I would hope.
Yes, so good. That's why I always say the PS1 weird experimental era, man, bring it back. Bring it back. Let's get fucking weird again. Um, Thank you guys so fucking much for joining me. This
Yeah,
is
of
a
course.
blast. I really enjoyed chatting with both of you. Dylan, I got a little bit of my fix with you on Super RPG Friends, and that was awesome. And Paul, I've been meaning to chat with you on here in some way for a while, so it was awesome that you finally had some time to do so. So thank you guys both. Um, Real quick, remind people where we can find you on the internet, and I will provide some links in the chat. Uh, Dylan, we'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah. So my main haunt is on Twitter. Find me at the Dilla. That is PHA under IL. I'm also part of a handful of podcasts. Is it all right if I plug a couple of those,
Yeah,
Joey?
yeah, of course. I
Okay.
got the links ready to
Yeah.
go.
So
So.
yeah, I have it open. Um, I'm also part of Backstage Gaming. It is a podcast where myself and a friend from college, Chris, we are both actors. We both studied fine arts, and so we look at video game design from a perspective of our fine arts background. And then sometimes we just do like more variety stuff. It's kind of loose, but we try to keep it structured. I think our last episode was on um games that take place in a single town. So I talked a little bit about Etrian Odyssey, Pokemon Stadium. Chris has picked up Persona 4 for the first time, so we talked a little bit about Inaba. Now, if that sounds cool to you, you can check us out there on we're on Twitter at BSG Cast. I'm in a couple other ones, but I don't want to take up too much time. So,
No, you're fine. I
uh,
got all the links in the chat for people who want to check them out. And
okay,
this will be in the VOD too and in the description. So, oh yeah, cool. Also, adding Diablo one to that list in my head that towns that RPGs.
Like yeah, single location. Yeah.
So sick. And
Dungeon
Paul,
Encounters would be another one.
oh yeah,
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a good one.
Oh
Yeah,
boy, that's a
absolutely.
game.
Yeah, I'm Paul Shkreli. You can find me at Twitter at paulwall217, and then you can also find me writing some reviews at rpgamer.com. And yeah, I'm always looking for other places to contribute to. So if you send me a DM, do it.
Awesome. And thank you guys so fucking much for hanging out in the chat, roasting me as always. Thank you. That's a necessary part of these streams, and for interacting. One of the big reasons I like doing this is to have this open discussion and hear everybody's opinions, and it's been really fun. And as we continue this podcast more and more, it's evolving more and more, and it's becoming something I'm super stoked for every week. So thank you guys so much. You can, if you like me, which fuck these guys, but if you like me, we do Super RPG Friends on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're doing Final Fantasy VII now. Tomorrow we are streaming, and then we're going to be doing Dirge of Cerberus on a side stream next week, and a bunch of wacky shit. So thank you guys so fucking much again. Paul and Dylan, absolute pleasure to have you guys here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I would love to have you guys again. So, let's stay in touch. And hell yeah. Thanks again, everyone, and we will see you next week.